Just
to do kind of like some banter to just open up every episode, like
something like that.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening. This is the first recording, the first episode,
the
inaugural episode of the roundtable discussion of the Society of Shady Characters. And I think that begs the question: what exactly is the Society of Shady Characters? Ryan, you want to lead us off on what we're doing here?
So basically, John, myself, and Brett came together and we kind of discussed the importance of our faith and the importance of spreading our message. And I think it's something that is kind of lacking right now in popular culture, something that's not very mainstream. I mean, Catholic college students talking about their faith, expressing their faith, and living their faith. And I think that's something that's really important. So I think that's kind of how the Society of Shady Characters was started and created.
Yeah. And for those wondering where the name comes from, the name Shady Characters starts with a man by the name of Pier Giorgio Frassati. He was a man living in Italy around the time of Mussolini, if that gives you a timeline reference point. And basically, he was a man of God who loved service to the poor, but also loved prayer with his friends. And so he started a group that he called the Tipi Loci, which in Italian roughly translates to Shady Characters. And they were a prayer group of young adults who were interested in mountaineering and prayer. And so they would go out most weekends, climb mountains in Italy, and of course they've got beautiful, stunning mountains, all over Italy.
So nice.
And so they would climb to the top of them and pray together. And so, I was inspired by that group and by that name to bring about this group and try to continue the legacy that started there. So Brett, what are we going to talk about today?
So this first episode, we're just kind of giving a brief intro on to who we are and our backgrounds and how we got to this point where we felt strong enough about our faiths to do something like this.
Yeah, sorry for my voice. I'm not sick. We got a little bit excited, rambunctious. I was singing in the car the other day, and as you can tell, I was going a little bit more enthusiastically than the other two. So, Ryan, I want to start with you. How would you define your faith journey up to this point in your life?
Oh God,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, for sure. So I grew up in a very stable Catholic household. Great parents who raised me in the Catholic faith. Sunday school. My mom took an active role in teaching, whether it was my brother, myself, or my sister. So a lot of just growing up within the Catholic Church. Went to a Catholic conference when I was a freshman in high school. However, when COVID hit, I wasn't able to go in person, and that kind of derailed my faith, I would say, because I wasn't super fond of watching Mass online. When I got to my freshman year of college, I went for the first couple of weeks, I think as a lot of people do, trying to find their footing. However, I never really found mine. And because of this, I stopped attending Mass due to laziness, not wanting to wake up on Sunday morning, and just overall a lack of faith. However, one of my good friends, Jacob Mulcahy, as we all know, started to invite me to daily Mass towards the end of my freshman year. We were playing Ultimate Frisbee together just in the afternoons, and Jacob would start inviting me to daily Mass after we finished. Then during my freshman year's Good Friday, I remember during the Adoration of the Cross, I remember praying, asking for God's help in my life because I wasn't where I wanted to be, and I said that I would do anything for His help in my life, and since then I've become more physically, mentally, and spiritually happy. I have a great group of friends, including John and Brett. Going to Mass is one of my top priorities on the weekend. I mean, we enjoy brunch afterwards. It's very good fraternity. And I would say that, because of Jacob Mulcahy, my faith was reignited. I really appreciate him for all he has done in my life. And up until this point, I just have to give thanks to God because, I had great parents who surrounded me, and I have great friends who surround me and help me express my faith daily.
That's good. Hopefully Jacob sees this. You gave him plenty of shout-outs, but he's a good man, so
he is a good man.
I can agree with that. And yeah, so I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that we've made it to this point in our lives. And Brett, how did you end up here?
My story is fairly similar to Ryan. So, like him, I grew up as a cradle Catholic. I know that term gets thrown around a lot. My parents were super devout. I'm the oldest of 8, so that says a lot about my parents' view on Catholicism.
Yeah.
Started off by going to Mass with them every week ever since I was a little kid. They would take an active role, like Ryan's parents, where they would do the faith formation with me and or my siblings and all of that. After confirmation, my parents claimed it became more of my choice. Like, I would be able to choose when to go and all that, but I still felt the pressure to go. And so I never really felt like the faith was my own during, while I was before college. And because of that, once I got to college, I just tried going every week and continuing that, but never really found the faith as my own. So like Ryan, kind of stopped going altogether. I still went on breaks, of course, when I was with my family, and tried going to retreats and stuff to try reigniting my faith. But none of them really were successful until about spring semester, my sophomore year. I went on a retreat called Tech Retreat, and in it, this was the second year I went, so because of that, I was helping work it, and while working it, me and Ryan met, and
It was a good weekend.
discovered we both enjoyed a lot of the same interests, such as board games, and of course shared a lot of the same values because of our faith, and because of that, started hanging out with him more, and of course met John that weekend as well, and both of them really helped me get back into my faith. I started going with them to Mass every weekend, and I felt like that point right there is when the faith became my own. Like, it took friends to reel me back in, but once that happened, once I gave my soul to God, I was like, God, help me have faith in you, help me just grow in you to be a better person, to be a better human. After that happened, the faith became my own, and regardless if I was with them or not, I started going to church every Sunday, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I remember that weekend pretty
That
well.
was a fun weekend, yeah.
Yeah, these two were on extreme, I would say pretty steady, dedicated fasts to pray for those who were actually going through the retreat, since we were on the working end this time around. And one of the very, very, very few things they were permitted to have during the day was water. And I was not on this fast. I was just kind of going around making sure everyone had what they needed. So, these people didn't want to give the kids water, so I made sure I snuck a few cases over, upset a few people. But we got to play some board games.
That was fun.
We did play some board games.
We did play some board games. Glad you're here.
So what's your story, John?
Well, let me tell you. So once again, I was born to a Catholic family, like both of you, and I would say that while the faith was definitely present amongst my parents, it wasn't a central point of our lives. My mom especially, she went to Mass every weekend and made sure that she brought the family with her, but I didn't really know too much about it, and we were sent to Catholic school from kindergarten through high school, but I would say that through 8th grade I hadn't really learned much about the faith, other than that we believed in God and we went to church every Sunday, and we believed that he was present in the Eucharist, and that we had to pray to him, and if we didn't, we could be sent to hell for eternity. Didn't sound very enticing to me, but I didn't really know what that meant or the gravity of that until I went to high school. I went to high school at a Benedictine all-boys military high school. It was day only. It was not boarding, but for all the benefits and flaws that it had, one thing that they certainly did a good job of was having teachers in the theology department who knew their stuff. And for me, I've always been somebody who's been more drawn to the intellectual side of things rather than the emotional. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate both sides, but I've always been more interested in the intellectual, and I need arguments to understand why something is correct. Excuse me. But I started to get that because there were teachers there who were willing to take hard questions, and from the students, and answer them genuinely, and not only genuinely but emotionally and like powerfully. When they said, "This is what we believe," that you could tell that they genuinely believed it. And whenever I had a question, if they couldn't answer it on the spot, they encouraged me to look it up, to do some research, and then if I disagreed with something, to argue with them. And eventually I did argue and found that I had a smaller understanding of what was going on in life than I might have thought at 13. And so I think that really gave me an outlet for my curiosity, and it kind of let my mind fight and argue with stuff that I thought was challenging, and I needed that. And then I learned, plus with the discipline at this all-boys Catholic school that also has a military program, I got a lot of discipline, and learning the discipline of the faith, that there are some very rigid rules, and why they're there is important, and why we have to have rules, why we have to have rules for what we're doing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to operate within a society. And like I said, that fueled my curiosity and helped me get in this loop of wanting to understand more. And then finally, I, came here to college and was no longer under the power of my parents per se. Not that they were forcing me to go. By senior year, I was driving myself. I was going to a different parish than my parents. So I had already started taking that responsibility. So once I got here, it wasn't a hard transition, but it was in the middle of COVID. And boy, I met some really important people here, I think. Whether they knew it or not, I mean, they had a really good attitude on the faith, like Jacob and James Ferrante. We'll give all our shout outs now. James and Andrew, Pat, Sarah, Dan, Teddy. I was in the choir, like I said, and Ryan was. Brett wasn't, but not that that's anything against Brett.
I don't think the choir would have wanted
to. maybe not. But, that gave me a community where I could kind of meet these people who had similar, if not similar backgrounds, definitely similar invigorations and intentions. And, this group of mostly seniors were willing to welcome, a freshman in their group, which isn't super normal here. And it had a really good impact on pushing me that I was not an odd, one-off at college, that I could be strong in my faith and willing to push my knowledge and my curiosity further. And so, that led to eventually what we're trying to do here. And so that leads me to, kind of re-emphasizing what we're doing here. And I'd like to take a second to read the mission statement that we threw together for this group of our friends and people that you've yet to meet. Our mission statement reads, "Spread the word of God through conversation, debate, and action, calling on and inspiring members to seek and orient their lives to the highest good and happiness, God." And so I guess that begs the question, why is it important to seek God, and what does that really mean? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I kind of wrote about this and why I wanted to help this get off the ground, because I know John came to me this summer and kind of proposed this idea, and having a little bit of background in video editing and software and stuff, I was more than happy to. But I think that really comes from believing that in this day and age, it's very easy to forget the importance of God and to have lukewarm faith. I mean, this world that we live in, it's really easy to become so busy that we just put other things above God.
Mhm.
But as God mentions, or as God states in Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall not have other gods besides me. So I think often we get so busy that we make other things our masters and that we forget that there is only one God whom we are called to serve, God whom we are called to serve. Secondly, I think it's important to help share the good news, and I believe that this is something that college students are looking for and are hungry, as like our three cases have explained. So that is something that's super important to me. I think sometimes we can make other things more important than God or put them on the same level as God, maybe not through like worshiping them, but through our actions, like taking time out of our day to focus on homework or school or friendships or our phones. And because of that, we forget to give time to God daily. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to put a lot more focus onto, is giving more time to God.
Yeah, and I think people have a yearning to treat their faith as something equal to, what they're learning in school. And we go to school and we learn math and science, and we're taught that these are the truths. Here, look how seriously we talk about them. Look how seriously we teach them. And then they go to talk about their faith with a group leader or with classmates, and it's just like, oh yeah, sometimes I do that, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that, and it's it's kind of treated as like a secondary, yeah. So, we can expand upon that idea of putting things alongside, equal to God.
One verse that came to mind while we were talking about this is Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. It's talking about the sacrifice of body and mind. It says, I urge you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, your spiritual worship. Do not conform yourselves to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect.
Where exactly is that?
Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2.
Yeah. I like what you were saying, Ryan, about how sometimes we put things on equal importance, and maybe it's not with what we think we want to be in equal importance, but it's how we spend our time. Ultimately, we pursue what we perceive is the best good for us in the moment. And so sometimes it's easy to get that confused.
Especially when you get busy with school or work or...
Right, because there are other important things. But is it the most important thing? I think that's the hard thing to keep in mind.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
I believe we all are.
I think we all are.
Just putting other things above salvation, other things above God, because at the end of the day, we're going to be judged on how committed we are to God, how committed we are to His commandments, and how well we carry those out.
Yeah, and I think we've been really fortunate as a group that we have a group of friends that, we have similar interests. We like playing board games. We like playing board games. We like, going out to mass together, getting brunch together. We like meeting up and praying every once in a while. And I think some of us overlap interests in sports and media and whatnot. But, in this group, we have a group of 8 friends. That are just guys who love God, I think, and we have a great opportunity to talk about that with each other that I think that a lot of people are just kind of missing in their life. So, hopefully we can aim to fill some of that gap in some other people's lives that we've been fortunate enough to have as college kids, that have other people who are interested in talking about the faith. So yeah.
John, do you kind of want to talk about how this idea came up, why we wanted to get this off the ground from your perspective?
Yeah, so good question. Thanks for letting me talk for another long 5 minutes with this voice. Hard to believe I was in choir sounding like this. Huh? So basically at the end of last year, I was feeling a desire to do a little bit more than what our group does, on a normal basis. I thought we all had a collective knowledge and wisdom from the short amount of time we've been on Earth that we could share. And at first, I got this idea that we could make a website, have a blog, and each of us could write an article and contribute to a blog on a weekly basis. And then we started looking into the logistics of, Mr. Computer Science over here I was gonna help him make a website, and then we were looking into that, and we didn't want to learn HTML, and we didn't want to pay for a service because we're just broke college kids. So, not to say that it's not worth it, but
worth it down the line.
Maybe if we can
Right now, not as feasible as we would like it to be.
Right. So when we started looking at, we could do this service, and it's $30 a month for the website maker, and then another $10 a month for the server or something like that. I was like, well, YouTube is free, and you've got a microphone, and Eric has a microphone, and
we all got
computers.
Phones with cameras that are way too good.
Jared has a camera, so on the whole, we have the resources to make videos for free. So why not start there? So that's where this idea started, and I pitched it to you guys and the rest of our friends at lunch, or at brunch rather, and everyone surprisingly was on board. I thought I was a little bit crazy for just wanting to do this out of the blue, but as it turns out, it was kind of a popular idea, which hopefully over time you'll get to meet the rest of the guys. A couple of them are out working a freshman retreat this weekend, helping with that, so they couldn't be here.
Giving their first other way.
Yeah. They're not just sleeping right now. I'll give them their credit. They're doing work. But yeah, hopefully over time you'll get to meet them. So yeah, that's kind of how this came about, and that was before I had heard about Blessed Pier Giorgio Fossati and his group. That was more just an idea for the namesake and the intention's sake. I thought it matched pretty well with what we wanted to do, which was
the fact that they were young, college kids, all
they were young and
super strong in their faith and wanting to share that,
spread the word and serve people. And I thought that matched pretty well with what we were trying to do. And so yeah, now we're here making it happen.
Brett, do you want to talk about kind of why you got into this as well? When John pitched it, were you hesitant or?
I wasn't hesitant at all. I mean, I knew it was going to be another time commitment. And time's the most valuable thing we all have, just because, especially as college students, we're extremely busy. So I knew it was going to be a time commitment, but I knew that it would be something that made myself happy and that I could be proud of, because I'd be spreading the gospel, spreading the word of God to other people, and hopefully making a difference in their spiritual lives while becoming stronger in mine, because you aren't just going to be coming to this willy-nilly. You have to come in with some background research, make sure you actually know what you're talking about. And so I'll get stronger in my faith while hopefully helping others get stronger in theirs. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, kind of just like I talked about, having that spiritual experience my freshman year where I went away from the faith for a while, and then I came back to it, and just kind of not wanting other people to go through that for the reasons of going away from the faith. I want people to be strengthened in their faith, but if I can help someone do that, then I'm definitely gonna take this mission on. It kind of reminds me of my personal favorite Bible verse, which is Luke 9 verse 23 through 25. Then he said to all, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. What does it profit? What profit is there for one to gain the whole world, yet lose or forfeit himself?" And I mean, we all went through Exodus. We've all done Exodus 90, opening meetings with that. It's something that has stuck with me since doing my first round of Exodus 90. And it's something that's very important to me because, like I've talked about, people can become so busy and so focused in being a part of the world where we are called to be in the world but not of the world, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need all these material things. What does it profit a man if he forfeits or loses himself instead of carrying his cross daily and living the conditions of discipleship as Jesus calls us to do so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I gave up on finding a verse I was trying to find. Clearly, I'm not prepared for this area, but I think one of the verses similar to that's always kind of struck me is maybe if I move into the mic and talk a little quieter, I can manage it. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah.
And we can eventually get into what that means to fear God. Does it really mean that you should, cower down and be afraid of who He is and what He does for us? And the God we believe in is, we believe He's all powerful, which could mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what does it mean that to fear Him is to start your journey of wisdom? So maybe we can get into that eventually. I don't know if you have anything in mind for verses that kind of help you along the way, but
I don't have any off the top of my mind.
It's fine. Not to call you out or anything. Just saying.
Just saying. Come on, Brett.
Yeah. So yeah. You want to talk about some of the topics we might want to tackle this start of the year? I mean, it's the start of our academic year. It's not exactly the start of the calendar year or the fiscal year, I guess, if we're thinking about it professionally. So yeah, I know we touched on maybe talking about what the fear of God means.
I think the importance of Mary is something that I'm really interested in covering, because I know a lot of my Protestant friends or my Lutheran friends, they're like, why do you guys pray to Mary? What's the importance of that? Like, why do you guys...
Or why do you worship
Mary?
Mary?
They're like, why do you worship Mary?
Like,
I want to give them a little more.
Yeah.
Misconceptions about Mary.
Yeah, like misconceptions about the Catholic faith, Catholic Church, just anything and everything about that, and working to increase faith. I mean, the lives of disciples, I think, are something that a lot of people don't know about, certain disciples. I mean, even this summer, like, I learned about a new saint, like the lives of saints, like...
Which saint did you learn about?
Father Colby.
Maximilian.
Yeah, Maximilian Kolbe.
That's a cool story.
It is, and like going and seeing like his site where he was starved to death, and how.
Oh yeah, because you went to.
Yeah, and just seeing all of those things like there in person, it was very, very deep and interesting to me. So I think continuing on that, Brett, is there anything in particular that you want to cover?
I mean, we're covering the Eucharistic Revival next episode.
Yeah.
I think that's something super important, so definitely stay tuned to see that next week. But that, then, again, just some of the big misconceptions of the Catholic faith. Why the Pope or the Bishop of Rome is the head of the Catholic Church.
Where that comes from.
Where that comes from, mainly.
A lot of the traditions that people may not know about.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited
too.
to talk about that with you guys. Just one more verse that kind of summed up part of why I wanted to do this. Those of you who may attend the Latin Mass will recognize this. It's the first chapter of John, first verse. And it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was made nothing." That was the... Pardon, let me reread that part. All things were made by Him, and without Him was made nothing that was made. In Him was life, and the life was with the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to give testimony of the light, that all men might believe through him. He was not the light, but was to give testimony of the light. That was the true light, which enlighteneth every man that cometh into this world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. So, just the start of start of John's Gospel, and I think it's a really powerful message because, he talks about John, and not the writer, John the Baptist, but his calling was not to be the light, but to be the bringer of the light and to spread the word. And I think that's ultimately what we're here to do, is
Spread the word.
Yeah, not to be the light, but to spread it to the darkness, and to give witness and testimony that all men might believe through what he has to say. So yeah, do you have any other remarks for maybe this opening episode?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah.
I think you had a good bookend right there.
Yeah, difficult as it was to get through.
With the raspy voice.
Oh, I wish it was only raspy. I can deal with raspy, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
So yeah, as Brett said, next episode we'll be covering the Eucharistic Revival. Give us a quick overview of that for those who don't know what I mean when I say the Eucharistic Revival.
The Eucharistic Revival is a movement started by the Catholic bishops of the United States on Corpus Christi 2022 to re-enlighten everyone, especially young Catholics, with what the Church believes about the Eucharist and about transubstantiation. Yes, I always
big Catholic words.
So if you're interested in that, you can do your own research or just wait until this next episode comes out.
Yeah, and lastly, I just want to reiterate that yes, we are all Catholic, and obviously we will be studying these things through the lens of church teaching and the Catholic Church, but we do not mean to be exclusive
Catholic group.
Yeah,
I mean, one friend that we're hoping to have on quite often is Protestant, and he's super strong in his faith, so we'll definitely have his view sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to pursue what we believe to be true and try to explain that to the best of our abilities, but from personal experience, it's been a lot more to agree about than there is to disagree about, especially with other Christians. So, though we are very much oriented around the Catholic Church, we do not aim to be exclusively Catholic. So please stick around, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you.